Introduction. Hook. Derek Reynolds appeared to have it all. In his early 40s, he was the epitome of success, a sharp-dressed, confident businessman with a thriving career in real estate. Derek's charisma and charm made him well-liked in his community, and his polished image gave no hint of the secrets lurking beneath the surface. People often admired the life he seemed to lead, complete with a beautiful home, an enviable social circle, and most notably, his accomplished wife, Captain Laura Reynolds. Laura was everything a man could hope for: intelligent, driven, and fiercely loyal. As a highly respected military officer, she had dedicated her life to serving her country. Her overseas deployments were frequent, but she carried out her duties with grace and unwavering focus. To those who knew her, Laura embodied discipline and honor, and she had a reputation that matched her rank. When she was home, she and Derek presented themselves as the perfect power couple, a symbol of stability and mutual support. But perfection is often a facade. Behind closed doors, Derek struggled with the long stretches of loneliness that came with Laura's military career. While he put on a convincing act for friends and neighbors, the cracks in their relationship were growing. Laura's demanding job left little room for their marriage, and Derek began to feel more like a shadow in her life than an equal partner. This quiet dissatisfaction festered in his mind, though he never voiced it to Laura. As months turned into years, Derek's resentment and feelings of neglect began to guide his choices. He still smiled at social gatherings and posted pictures of himself and Laura during her brief visits home, maintaining their image as a perfect couple. But beneath his polished exterior, Derek was wrestling with temptations and impulses that would eventually lead him down a dark and irreversible path. From the outside, Derek and Laura's marriage seemed unshakable, but the secrets Derek harbored would soon unravel their carefully constructed life. What started as a picture-perfect union was on the brink of collapse, and neither of them could see the storm brewing just beyond the horizon. The affair unfolds. It all began on a crisp autumn evening at a corporate networking event held in the city's most upscale hotel. Derek had attended the event reluctantly, coaxed by a colleague who insisted it would be good for business. As he moved through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, he found himself face to face with Samantha Carter. She was 28, vibrant and full of energy, an aspiring artist with a magnetic presence that immediately caught Derek's attention. Samantha wasn't like the people Derek usually met at these events. She was witty and unfiltered, with a playful confidence that intrigued him. What started as casual conversation about her artwork and his business quickly turned into a more personal exchange. She listened intently as Derek spoke about his life and career, and for the first time in a long while, he felt genuinely seen and appreciated. Samantha's charm was undeniable, and Derek couldn't ignore the spark between them. Their connection didn't end that night. They exchanged numbers under the guise of keeping in touch professionally, but both knew it was more than that. Text messages turned into late-night conversations, and before long, Derek was finding excuses to meet Samantha. They started with coffee dates and casual lunches, but their interactions grew bolder as they both gave in to the pull of their attraction. For Derek, Samantha was an escape from the monotony and loneliness he felt in his marriage. She offered excitement and admiration, something he hadn't felt in years. For Samantha, Derek was a mature, successful man who seemed to value her in a way others hadn't. But as their affair deepened, so did Samantha's expectations. She began to crave more than stolen moments and secret rendezvous. She wanted a real relationship, one where she didn't have to hide in the shadows. Their secret meetings became riskier, held in hotels or secluded spots where they wouldn't be recognized. Derek, driven by guilt and fear of being discovered, tried to keep their affair under control, but Samantha's demands for more attention made it increasingly difficult. She would send messages at all hours, call unexpectedly, and drop hints about wanting to take their relationship public. Her growing dissatisfaction planted the seeds of conflict, and Derek found himself caught in a web of his own making. Despite his attempts to manage the situation, Derek couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully constructed world was beginning to unravel. The more time he spent with Samantha, the closer he came to a tipping point that would change everything. As the weeks turned into months, Samantha's frustrations reached a boiling point. She was tired of sneaking around, of being a secret that Derek refused to acknowledge publicly. One evening, during a heated argument, Samantha made a chilling threat. If Derek didn't leave his wife and make their relationship official, she would tell Laura everything. The ultimatum sent Derek into a spiral of panic. He knew the consequences of Samantha's revelation would be catastrophic. Laura's strict values and spotless reputation were the cornerstones of her life. As a high-ranking military officer, any scandal involving her personal life could jeopardize her career. Derek's betrayal would not only destroy his marriage, but also ruin Laura's hard-earned standing in her profession. The thought of facing her wrath and the fallout from their friends and family was too much for him to bear. Derek's anxiety only deepened when he began receiving anonymous messages. They started as cryptic texts. You think no one knows, but they do. Secrets have a way of coming out. At first, he thought Samantha might be behind them, trying to pressure him further, but the tone of the messages felt different, more ominous. They hinted at knowledge only an outsider could have, leaving Derek paranoid and unsettled. His attempts to confront Samantha about the messages only added to their escalating tension. She denied sending them and accused him of trying to deflect from their issues. The arguments between them grew more frequent and volatile, with Samantha accusing Derek of stringing her along and Derek pleading with her to be patient. In the back of his mind, Derek couldn't shake the fear that someone else might know about the affair, a neighbor, a colleague, or even someone connected to Laura. The possibilities swirled in his mind, feeding his paranoia. Every time his phone buzzed or someone mentioned Laura's name, his stomach twisted in knots. The pressure was mounting, and Derek's carefully constructed double life was beginning to crumble. The crime. Derek's desperation reached its peak on a cold winter evening when he invited Samantha to his private cabin in the woods. The secluded location, far from prying eyes, had always been his retreat, a place where he could think clearly and escape the chaos of his life. He told Samantha they needed to discuss their future, hoping to find a way to appease her without destroying everything he'd built. When Samantha arrived, she was visibly agitated. The conversation quickly turned heated as she repeated her demands for Derek to leave Laura. Derek, cornered and frustrated, tried to reason with her, but Samantha was relentless. In a moment that left Derek utterly stunned, Samantha revealed she was pregnant. Her words hit him like a thunderbolt. Whether it was the truth or a ploy to gain leverage, Derek couldn't be sure. But the implication was clear. This secret was becoming impossible to contain. The argument escalated as Derek's fear and anger bubbled to the surface. Samantha accused him of using her and ruining her life, while Derek begged her to give him more time. The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with unspoken threats and raw emotion. In the heat of the moment, Samantha made a move to leave, vowing to tell Laura everything if Derek didn't meet her demands. Panic overtook Derek as he grabbed her arm, pleading with her to stop. Samantha's voice rose in defiance, her words cutting through him like a knife. And then, in a tragic instant, the situation spiraled out of control. In his desperate attempt to silence her, Derek pushed Samantha away with more force than he intended. She stumbled, her head striking the edge of the fireplace with a sickening thud. Time seemed to freeze as Derek stared at Samantha's motionless body on the floor. The reality of what had just happened hit him like a tidal wave. His mind raced, alternating between denial and the horrifying realization that he had just taken a life. The cabin, once a place of solace, now felt like a prison closing in around him. Cover up. Derek's instincts kicked in, driven by sheer panic and a desperate need to protect himself. He stared at Samantha's lifeless body, his mind racing with possibilities. Leaving her there wasn't an option. He had to make it look like an accident or a random act of violence. His hands trembled as he began to clean the scene, carefully wiping down surfaces and removing any traces of their argument. He dragged Samantha's body to the edge of the cabin's front porch, staging it to appear as though she had slipped on the icy steps. He arranged her position, hoping it would look convincing under scrutiny. Then, he scoured the cabin for anything that could tie her to him. He deleted their text exchanges, erasing months of communication that could expose incriminating messages, and tossed it into the river on his drive back to the city. But the panic didn't fade. Derek spent hours rehearsing his alibi, convincing himself that the story would hold. He ensured his phone records would show he was at home all evening, going so far as to text colleagues during the supposed time of the accident. His heart pounded with every precaution he took, but the nagging voice in the back of his mind reminded him of the old saying, "No crime is ever perfect. Investigation and discovery." The investigation began almost immediately after Samantha's body was discovered. Local authorities treated her death as suspicious, noting the inconsistencies in how her injuries aligned with the scene. Detectives scrutinized every detail, from the positioning of her body to the absence of any visible signs of a struggle outside the cabin. It didn't take long for them to suspect foul play. Derek's carefully crafted alibi began to unravel under closer examination. Detectives interviewed his colleagues and friends, piecing together a timeline that didn't quite add up. Surveillance footage from nearby highways captured Derek's car heading toward the cabin on the night of Samantha's death, contradicting his claims of being at home. This discovery cast a shadow of doubt over his story. The investigation took a sharper turn when forensic experts recovered deleted messages from Samantha's phone. Despite Derek's attempts to erase their communication, traces of their affair and heated arguments surfaced. The texts painted a picture of a volatile relationship, with Samantha expressing frustration over being kept a secret and Derek pleading for more time to resolve their situation. These messages became a crucial piece of evidence, pointing to Derek as the prime suspect. Meanwhile, Laura stumbled upon a hidden item that shattered her perception of her husband. While sorting through Derek's belongings, she discovered a small velvet pouch containing Samantha's earring, an unmistakable piece of evidence linking him to the victim. Laura's heart sank as she realized the extent of Derek's betrayal and the dark truth behind Samantha's death. Confronted with mounting evidence and the weight of his own guilt, Derek found himself cornered. The walls of his double life were closing in, and the consequences of his actions were about to come crashing down.